In sunny Akron, Ohio, lived a small but friendly family. Father Jack Powell worked in a construction firm, and Mother Anna realized herself in the profession of assistant child psychologist. Because of her calling to help children gain confidence and learn to socialize, Anna excelled at raising both of her children. Jack and Anna valued family relationships, building warm, open bonds with their children. Little Sophia, Anna and Jack's firstborn, grew up to be an outgoing and friendly girl from an early age. She enjoyed helping her mom find common ground with other children and listening to her advice on developing self-confidence. In contrast to Anna, who engaged with Sophie more physical skills of self-assertion, her father embodied book knowledge. Jack was passionate about literary education and tried to instill in Sophia literary tastes and abilities. Over time, Jack and Sophia developed a truly bookish and trusting style of communication as father and daughter, sharing difficult family secrets with each other. Over time, the Powell family suffered the loss of a child. Their son once suffered a serious head injury shortly after receiving his father's literary abilities. Unfortunately, this tragedy left the young member of their family with serious mental trauma. After the incident, Sophia's brother was no longer able to develop normally in school due to his emotional ages. Although the family coped with the terrible grief, they still faced new challenges in raising and understanding their child. A growth crisis comes to all families, even the most family-oriented and united. But the Powell family overcame these challenges with dignity, showing patience and care in parenting and communicating with their traumatized child. Alas, the fragile bonds in such cases become difficult to understand and repair over time. Opportunities for communication gradually dry up for such family crises. Therefore, Jack and Anna listened carefully to the doctor's recommendations and were careful not to jeopardize their son's traumatized psyche with conflict-inducing situations. Just as the doctors feared, a terrible tragedy occurred. The family lost their son due to serious psychological trauma. In one family crisis, rising tensions led to irreparable consequences, which had a devastating effect on the fragile bonds of family members. Father Jack had to show great restraint in dealing with his emotionally explosive son on that fateful day. Everything happened quickly, but irrevocably. The young member of the family did not cope with the new mental challenges and was not able to restore the mental balance. In one of the most severe growth crises, the Powell's son never overcame psychological traumas and failed to cope with new mental upheavals. Fragile family relationships failed, and the family suffered a bereavement. Suddenly, life was different, and the entire close-knit family found themselves in deep mourning, experiencing an unbearable mental breakdown in ties. The Powells had to show incredible stamina and self-control, spiritual fortitude and strength. However, they were never able to overcome this mental crisis within the confines of normal family relationships. The unbearable tragedy of loss jeopardized the very possibility of normal communication and spiritual maturation of the children, which is so valuable to them. The parents have struggled to pull themselves together to ensure the normal spiritual development of the rest of the family, but self-expression is already threatened. The child's maturation has come into question. How to protect now the fragile childhood, which is so difficult to preserve in the off-hours crises. The family itself is teetering on the brink of exhausting the possibilities of normal ties. On the threshold of spiritual emptiness, the family has only to be patient with each other and show dignity, consideration, and kindness to each other. The Powells must now maintain the most familial attitude in their relationship, gaining as much consideration, patience, and humanity for each other as possible. Jack will support Anna in her usual expression, expressing dignity and friendly kindness in his trademark mother style. Anna, in return, will show patient understanding for Jack and their two daughters. Sophia will habitually encourage the little bookish tastes, skillfully showing caring in the relationship. Sophia, at this age of growth crisis, will accustomedly ask questions of difficult communication with her daughter little bookish skills. But she will skillfully demonstrate caring self-satisfaction with all her relationship accomplishments with her family. Sophia, with her inherent bookish sensitivity, will show timely attention and concern for the problems of other family members. With motherly care, she will patiently build up with her family the physical data to the rudiments of bookish communication. If Sophia will simply allow herself to gain inner independence in this spiritual maturation, her own family ties will gain a corresponding dignity. Despite the tragic loss, Sophia had to pick herself up and continue her life's journey. The soul wound after the loss of her brother was deep, but the girl was able to lean on the support of her loving parents. Jack and Anna did everything possible to surround their daughter with care and understanding during this difficult period. They gave her time to mourn the loss and did not rush her to make any serious decisions about the future. Sophia gratefully accepted her parents' help, gradually recovering from the shock. Communication with her mother, who always knew how to find the right words of comfort, helped the girl to heal the wounds of the soul. And her father, whose book knowledge was for Sophia a real anchor in life, reminded her of the importance of development and self-improvement. Gradually, the pain of loss began to recede, giving way to new goals and aspirations. Sophia was determined to continue her education and realize her potential to help people in difficult life situations, just as her parents were supporting her. Inspired by this idea, Sophia plunged headlong into her studies, striving to master all the necessary knowledge. Her diligence and hard work paid off. She finished school brilliantly and entered a prestigious university. University life turned out to be a completely new and exciting experience for Sophia. Life on campus, new friends and teachers, all this was a bright contrast after the trauma she had experienced. At first, it was not easy for the girl to adapt to the new free atmosphere of the campus. She was used to the measured way of family life and now had difficulties with self-organization. However, Sophia was not the type to give up after the first obstacles. She picked herself up and gradually got into a rhythm, scheduling time to study, relax, and socialize with new friends. Thanks to her friendliness and openness, Sophia quickly gained popularity in the student community. Her old childhood friends, with whom they enrolled together, were always there to help her adapt. But Sophia did not close herself off only on them and was happy to make new acquaintances. Meanwhile, the girl regularly called her parents, sharing the joys and experiences associated with the new stage of her life. Jack and Anna closely followed their daughter's progress, encouraging and supporting her in all her endeavors. The first year at university flew by almost imperceptibly in a whirlwind of new events and emotions. Sophia proudly told her parents about her achievements. She had managed to become one of the best students of the course, thanks to her diligent studies. However, the following years turned out to be more difficult tests for the girl. The study load increased significantly. There were complex technical disciplines with which Sophia could not cope. Fear of potential failure began to overwhelm Sophia. She remembered the tragedy she had experienced as a child and was subconsciously afraid of disappointing her parents again. She thought about the possibility of dropping out of school and returning home. Noticing the change in their daughter's behavior, her parents took immediate action. Jack and Anna came to the university campus to talk to Sophia personally. This intimate conversation, filled with mutual love and support, helped the girl overcome her fears. Her parents were able to convince her that any setback was just a temporary obstacle on the way to her goal, but not a reason for despair. Encouraged by their wise words, Sophia found new strength to fight against difficulties. She was determined to continue her studies despite the obstacles. Unfortunately, the learning difficulties did not recede. The load grew with each course, and Sophia could not cope with her fears and complexes. At night, the girl was tormented by nightmares in which she failed in the exams, after which she was expelled from the university under the mocking looks of others, and parents in these dreams with disappointment turned away from her. During the day, apathy and indifference possessed Sophia. She skipped lectures, citing ill health, although in fact simply did not find the strength to attend classes. The girl avoided socializing with her classmates and increasingly withdrew into herself. Long walks alone on campus and aimless TV watching replaced her former student entertainment. Her parents tried to support Sophia by calling her almost every day, but the girl more and more often gave indifferent answers, assuring her family that everything was fine. Deep down, she realized that she needed help, but false shame did not allow her to open up in front of her loved ones. Thus, Sophia was gradually drawn into the abyss of despair. The tragedy happened on a very ordinary spring day, when no one foretold trouble. Sophia had just missed another lecture, preferring to spend her time in the peace and quiet of her dorm room. There was a sudden knock on the door. A worried mother stood on the doorstep. Anna had come to the university herself, disturbed by her daughter's recent conversations. Her motherly instincts told her that something was wrong with Sophia. "Honey, what's going on with you?" Anna asked from the doorstep, looking into her daughter's devastated eyes. "I can see you're having a hard time, so let me help you." Sophia felt ashamed of her reclusiveness and isolation. Tears suddenly flowed from her eyes when she saw her mother's worried face. Anna wrapped her daughter in a tight embrace, trying to calm her sobs. At that moment, the phone rang. It was her father, Jack. Realizing that Anna was already at Sophia's, he rushed to see what was wrong. Anna answered the phone, expecting to quickly outline the situation to her husband. However, Sophia, seeing the phone in her mother's hands, was suddenly afraid to confess her learning lapses to her parents. She was overwhelmed by an old childhood trauma, and the girl became afraid of disappointing her loved ones. Not remembering herself, Sophia clutched at her mother's hand with the clamped phone and began to mercilessly pound Anna on the head with a heavy metal object lying nearby. Anna tried to resist, to call for help, but the blows came one after another with increasing fury. On the other end of the wire, Jack could only hear the sounds of struggling and screaming, not realizing what was happening. When Anna collapsed to the floor, Sophia pulled the phone out of her hand and spoke into the receiver in a tragic voice. "Daddy, an intruder has broken in. He killed Mom." Jack Powell was startled to hear these words. Not believing his ears, he hung up the phone and immediately called the police to the campus. Meanwhile, Sophia frantically tried to fake the robber's attack in her room. She broke the window, feigning a break-in, threw things around, and smeared herself with her mother's blood. When the police broke into the dorm room a few minutes later, they saw a wild scene. Anna was lying motionless in a pool of blood, and her daughter Sophia, scratched and covered in blood, was thrashing about and screaming about the robber's attack. However, experienced law enforcement officers immediately identified the signs of staging. A broken window from the inside, signs of struggle only in the room, no signs of forced entry, and no fingerprints of strangers. Sophia was twisted and handcuffed. The girl fell into a stupor, unable to realize the tragedy of what she had done. She was taken to the station, and forensics and medical examiners were called to the scene. Jack, who arrived half an hour later, stared at his wife's breathless body in a daze. He couldn't believe that his beloved Anna was dead, and his daughter had become a brutal killer. The world turned upside down overnight. After an investigation, the story of Anna Powell's brutal murder went to trial. A psychiatric examination found Sophia sane at the time of the crime. The girl was in a persistent state of affect, being obsessed with obsessions for fear of disappointing her parents because of possible failure in education. At the trial, Jack Powell, not hiding his mental anguish, appealed to the jury to show mercy. He pleaded not to deprive him of his last soulmate. According to the defendant, she does not remember the details of the crime. Everything happened as if in a fog. Sophia was charged under a number of serious articles: aggravated murder, staging a crime, attempting to conceal evidence. The prosecutor demanded the maximum punishment for her: life imprisonment without parole. However, the girl's lawyers insisted on the insanity of the defendant at the critical moment of the murder. In their opinion, Sophia should have been sent for compulsory treatment in a psychiatric clinic, where she would have been able to undergo long-term rehabilitation. After lengthy arguments, the judge reached a final verdict. Sophia Powell was found sane, but with significant mental disabilities. She was sentenced to 15 years imprisonment in a maximum security prison, followed by up to 5 years compulsory treatment. Upon hearing the verdict, Sophia burst into tears. They were tears not so much of despair as of relief and remorse. Already in the cell, the girl exclaimed, "God, what have I done? How could I take the life of the person closest to me? Mommy, forgive me." That day, Sophia realized that she had done something irreparable, taking the life of a loved one. But worst of all was the realization of the complete loss of her dead mother's trust. Epilogue. Jack Powell's life changed once and for all after the tragedy. He tried to visit his daughter in prison regularly, but each new meeting opened a wound of guilt and regret. Sophia, on the other hand, had only herself to blame. In prison, she was able to undergo a course of psychological rehabilitation. However, the former easy and carefree her existence will never become. The girl dreamed of only one thing: to beg forgiveness from her mother for her heinous offense. But alas, it was impossible to undo what she had done. Sophia regained consciousness after the call from the police station. She shuddered as she remembered what had happened. A nightmare come true. She couldn't believe that she had accidentally heard about her mother's death during a phone conversation with her teacher. Sophia felt herself in a strange reality. The atmosphere around her breathed something sinister. Her surroundings changed dramatically. The girl found herself in a cramped interrogation room with plastic chairs and the loneliness of her mother. There was an oppressive odor of despair in the air. The mother was dead, and the daughter was the prime suspect. Sophia wrapped her arms around her head in horror. How could she be at the center of a crime drama? After all, only a few minutes ago she had been happily preparing to meet her mother. Now a spirit of suspicion hovered around her. The room was silent, broken only by the voices of the investigators discussing another interrogation. Sophia felt as if she were in a horror movie. It seemed that the situation was unreal, a bad dream. But waking up, Sophia still found herself in the same nightmarish place. Sophia realized that she should immediately call her parents and tell them what had happened. After all, they will help to understand and tell her how to act. She dialed her father's number, but no one picked up. The same thing happened when she called her mother. Then Sophia decided to call her teachers and ask them for a favor. However, each time Sophia only heard horrible screams and moans from other people on the phone. The voices were full of pain, despair, and shock. Sophia cut the call off, feeling fear gripping her body. She tried dialing the number again and again, but each time she heard the same thing. The girl was in complete shock, hands down. Where did these moans and the voices of people she didn't know before come from? Sophia tried to call herself, but instead of her own voice, she heard a chilling scream of horror, followed by silence. Sophia walked out of the phone booth in which she was sitting in complete prostration. She couldn't understand why no one was answering the phone. The overall situation was starting to get scary. Even in a nightmare, the dream wasn't as realistic. Sophia slowly realized that there was nothing around her but screams and moans. Distraught, she dialed her mother's number again, but there was nothing but scary sounds on the other end of the wire. Sophia felt the blood run cold in her veins with fear. Where were her loved ones? What had happened? Why was she surrounded by nothing but terror and screams? She clutched her eyes tightly in panic and opened her eyes, hoping it was only a frightening dream. However, her mother's unmoving body in a pool of blood still lay before her gaze. At that moment, Sophia realized she was powerless to save her mother from the brutal attack. She was unable to help the loved one who had loved her and given her life. From this thought, the girl's heart was breaking. And in that terrible moment, a realization came to her. Amidst the incredible agony, screams, and moans, only her own voice was heard. There was no one else. She no longer needed to move closer. She realized the terrible truth. This was not an attack of maniacal cruelty. It wasn't mental illness. No one had killed her mother. There had been no murders, except murder in her own mind. The nightmarish moans came from her, and all around her were the walls of a mental institution. And maybe there never was any murder of her mother. She'd been delirious all this time, tortured only by her own memories. The truth turned out to be terrible and tragic. All this time, Brenda Powell was already dead, strangled by her own daughter in a fit of insanity. And the only killer all along had been Sophia herself, plagued by cognitive distortions and personality disintegration. She recalled how it had actually happened. Her mother had come into her room, wanting to support her daughter. But Sophia was already in a deep psychosis, and without words or regret, had attacked and killed Brenda. And from now on, this horror, generated by her distraught mind, would haunt her forever. Powell had to come to terms with the fact that in the process of years of mental rehabilitation, lost touch with reality, and all this time was the most cruel executioner for herself. In the end, the worst thing that torments her isn't even the intrusive thoughts that drive her insane for eternity. This pain only underscores the main revelation. Brenda is gone. Her life's smooth road faded forever. Now Sophia will forever be a prisoner of painful and agonizing memories so cruel and bloody.